Well, thanks for staying with KTN Prime. We continue with our wall-to-wall coverage, just remembering the life and times of the enigma of Kenyan politics, a true statesman who rose above party politics in order to set a path and followed by masses. Well, I'm talking about the late former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. We'll be talking with gentlemen who are well exposed in matters, politics and governance as we reflect on the life and times of Raila Odinga, but equally take a look at what lies ahead following his demise, since he has left a void that won't be so easy to be filled. Allow me to introduce my guests who are joining me in studio. I'll start with the gentleman on my immediate right, Jeremiah Kioni, the Secretary General of Jubilee Party. This time around, he's not donning red colors. I think he's in tune with the times that we are in. Kioni, karibu sana to our studios.
Asante, thank you for having us.
Thanks for your time. Michael Agwanda equally joins us, a seasoned political analyst. Agwanda, thank you so much for your time and your patience as well.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Equally joined by Professor Gitile Naituli, former NCIC commissioner and a governance expert, seasoned as well. Prof, asante sana.
Thank you.
Equally joined by Javas Bigambo, governance expert. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And gentlemen, we're meeting at unfortunate times, so perhaps giving each of us 2 minutes just to reflect on what exactly the country is going through right now following the death of Raila Odinga. How best would you remember him? Kioni, let's start with you.
Once again, I want to thank you for this opportunity to say pole to the family of Baba Raila Odinga, a real hero of this country. We have interacted with him in many ways, but on behalf of myself, my family, the entire Jubilee family, and even the region we come from, we want to say pole. Today is a dark day. Woke up early in the morning to unnecessary telephone calls, some social media messages that were irritating. And I remained that way, waiting for somebody to say that it is not true, until I saw William Ruto confirm it. So a dark day, a sad day.
Indeed.
And this is a gentleman who has used his entire life fighting for even what we are doing tonight, the freedom to be here and to say pole. It is because he fought for it.
Okay. We'll be coming back to you. Agwanda, your initial reaction and reflection of the life and times of Jacob.
As many have said, it is indeed a sad day. A day that Kenya would not have wanted to see. A day that has taken Kenyans with surprise. A day that definitely was not expected. In the era, the time, the event, the circumstances that we have in this country, the leadership, the direction that this country has been taking, we are definitely were not ready for this. Raila Odinga is a gentleman that I knew in person, that knew me in person, and that I've sat down with and had great time coffee together in his house. And besides that, we've also met in some other places. And it is sad, one, to know somebody that you know very well passes on, but also a person of his caliber, an icon of a nation, a political figure that no one will dare miss when he's looking for any position in this country, especially a presidential position. A man that cuts across from the small person to the highest person in the land. A man that did not just exhume his political exuberance in this country, but across the borders of our nations. He was in Africa, and he was in India and many other continents in this country. A man that will pick a phone and call presidents of almost the entire nation. A man that so loved his country, that wanted freedom and liberation. And a man that will not even care shaking hands with those who really hurt him so badly, and still sit down with them on the table and forgive them and champion the future of the nation.
Okay.
That is a person we are mourning today, and we don't think it is an easy thing. It is such a difficult moment to eulogize Raila Odinga.
Definitely so much to be said about his life. Prof, How do you remember the life of Raila Odinga?
I remember a Kenyan who gave it all actually to Kenya. He went through detentions without trial, but he never allowed that to create bitterness in him. He always find it in himself to make peace, to conciliate. And that means he always put the country first. I remember Raila as somebody who couldn't easily actually have been president, but many times he sacrificed the position for the country. I mean, if he didn't, for example, have a handshake with Uhuru Kenyatta in 2018, clearly would have been president in 2022. But he wanted a stable Kenya. So he did a handshake. So he's a national hero.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, somebody who can sacrifice his ambition for the country. That is a national hero. It's somebody we need to honor and we need to emulate. Usually, we use people who have passed on as examples of those now in power. And we ask to emulate that love for Kenya, which has been exhibited by those now who have left us.
Okay. Well, Jarvis, as you give us your take and pass your condolence message, it seems that this man emulated the fact that no individual is greater than the country. How best would you remember him?
Just the hands of grief are thrown all over around us. And all of us are now in the circumstances of sorrow. Many of us in this country and even in this panel are celebrating the life of Raila Odinga. But I sit here tonight to say thank you. Thank you to Raila Odinga for the sacrifices that he made, because by the ink of his sweat and sacrifice, he helped to carve a progressive democracy that Kenya is. He's a man, as Professor Naituli has properly put it, he knew what was good for him, but he knew better what is good for the country. And so, as we celebrate the life of this great son of our land, I say that we are finding in his life a great teacher for politicians, a great teacher for students, a great teacher for every citizen, that indeed we can pursue our individual ambitions, but we can be more patriotic and selfless, that we are willing anytime to cede ground for the greater good of the country. And as we do this, I think I commiserate greatly with the Odinga family, particularly Mama Ida Odinga and his brothers and his children, because while we sit here tonight and share the burden so great, I cannot imagine what the Odinga family is going through. But above all, I also commiserate so greatly with President William Ruto, who was his political partner in the recent times after the election, and the loss of Raila Odinga is a great loss for the president as well.
All right.
And as we do and go through all these moments of grief and even up to the time of interment, I think we can say that a great man has lived among us, and that whatever one may want to say, even those who are trying to denigrate his legacy, the son of Adonija Jaramogi Oginga Odinga was a great man.
Indeed. And as a politician, Kioni, you very well know of the importance of staying relevant in the political space. Raila Odinga is a man who reinvented himself time and time again. 5 stabs at the presidency, unsuccessful, but he rose from the political ashes like a phoenix and still endeared himself to the masses. What do you think kept him so connected with the masses? Why was he so relevant across so many decades that he was known as the foremost opposition figure, as a statesman, as the enigma of Kenyan politics? Yeah.
I think many of us have misunderstood or did misunderstand Raila. during the times of political competition, and perhaps very different from what some of us do. I don't think he ever wanted these political positions for himself. It was always because he believed in the cause of liberating people, creating space for people, making the Kenyans people have a better life. So that which he fought for kept him relevant all through his political life. It was not about self-preservation. It was about the people, service to the people, improving service to ensuring accountability, good governance, justice. Those are the things he used to fight for. Yeah. And when you're fighting for those things, you cannot become irrelevant, because those issues are still relevant even now as we mourn him. And we really need to think again and again, even us who are still left in this political competition, what is it that is driving you in politics? Every time you engage him, and I did a lot after before and after the 2022 elections, you always hear him talking about the service, the governance, justice issues, but never about him being a president. So even when we was receiving those bad news of the 2022 elections, or even the outcome of the Supreme Court, he still went out talking about what it is that we wanted to do. Not him. It was never himself. Yeah. And I think that is what kept him relevant. That's why every time he would stand up and say something and say higher, it's because then people say this higher is for us, it's not for him. And that makes him very different from many of us in politics today. And I believe that kept him going. And also, of course, him being a politician of not just, he's a natural politician, he also knew the right time to do the right thing, either to change the course or to leave that and take on the next phase of politics. Among the other issues that I'm sure my colleagues will...
Definitely. Agwanda, as you come in, did he stick true to his ideals till the very end? I'm pretty sure you've come across some negative comments on social media, and even with this younger generation, that in one way or the other felt a little bit betrayed when he decided, for the sake of the country, to actually join hands with the President, William Ruto, and forge this country forward. Was he true to his ideals till the very last? Is this a man who reinvented and forgot where he come from, or was he true to his ideals? Yeah.
I think that's a question that is hugely debatable out there. Looking at the circumstances under which we are now operating on, we are in a digital era, we are in the era of Gen Z, and we are in the era where there's a lot of information at the fingertip. As to whether Raila Odinga stayed true to his ideal till the end is a question that I will answer and say, yes, it did. But was he understood in all those generations? Perhaps not. That is where the context is. That is what he was not understood of. Because I believe Raila was a man that when people were going forward, he went with the people. And when there was a roadblock, he stopped there for a moment and looked back and left and right and decided whether he needed to pursue it or he needed to make a turn in the interest of the people, as Honorable Kioni has made it very, very clear. And I think that's the essence. We used to have a gentleman called Dr. Obdongo Mamo, and I remember at one point he was stopped from running for a member of parliament in Moroni, and he decided to go to Bondo, and he ran in Bondo and won. And he said, you know, if you reach a roundabout and you find one road exit is blocked, you can as well go to the other exit and then move on. And I think that's what Raila has done over the generation. And to that point, this generation of the Gen Z might not have understood Raila very clearly, because the question that Raila came up with and asked when Honorable Ruto approached him is, if this government goes, then what? Then what next? And that just changed the debate and the equation of the Gen Z and the acclimatization of ensuring that the government was shipped out in place at that particular time. Now, what I'm saying is this: Raila has always championed for the freedom of the people, the freedom of expression, the injustices that have been taking place in this country. And I don't think he was talking from a vacuum. He was jailed for 8 years since 1982.
9 years, actually.
9 years since 1982. And so he realized what it was, what it meant with detention without trial. And so when he spoke about it, he was in jail and he felt it. And Raila, when he talked about IBC that is accountable, IBC that is transparent, IBC that is free for all, he's been stolen from in a general election. So he knew very well that these are some of the few things that we need to change. When he talked about the multi-partyism, and we're talking about coming from one-party state, and that was during Kanu time, and then coming to a multi-party in 1992, he knew the circumstances that hit him so hard within the one-party state, that if you did not support the one-party state, then you could not be anybody in this country. You could not even get a loan from the bank. If you did get a loan from the bank, they will come for it, and they will make sure that your life is completely shattered. He knew what it was, and so that is the reason why he decided that it's a moment for multipartisan, and we must fight for it. And he put his life in the line, so that even if it meant that his life will be taken away, but other people will benefit from it. When it came to 2010 Constitution, he believed in it. He believed that the Constitution, the new Constitution, will not just empower people with the freedom of expression, empower people with a multi-party system that is robust, but also empower people in terms of development, in terms of devolving power and resources into the counties. He believed in it, and is the father of devolution in this country. And you can see that up to the last moment. The problem, however, my friend, is this, that we overworked Raila Odinga.
Yes, we did.
We overworked him.
Yes, we did.
At 70s, we were still calling him out every single moment. If the government didn't do well, we call him out. If the government did well, we call him out to oppose the government. I mean, he did not rest until the last minute. Remember a few days Raila's going out of this country in India. He was in Machakos. What was he doing in Machakos? Addressing members of parliament. These are young people, much, much younger than him. But they still wanted him to validate their position, unfortunately, by making a statement. And then you can see, we overworked him and we made him to work, even when he was supposed to rest. And I can authoritatively tell you that Raila Odinga had been told way, way earlier that you need to get out of this busy schedule. You need to rest your life because you are not a sweet 16 anymore. But man, we still call him to campaign for people, to raise people's hand, and to can you imagine what we've done for him? We are not blaming him because he loved to do it, but the truth of the matter is we overworked Raila Odinga.
True. Okay, interesting. Prof, with benefit of hindsight, those of my age and perhaps those younger do not understand the concept of detention without trial, might not equally understand the concept of one-party state. So take us through the times in the 80s and the early 90s, that transition that Kenya had, and how instrumental this man Raila Odinga was in terms of multi-party democracy and, you know, taking the bullet despite being locked away, as you said, for 9 years. How difficult was it to be politically active back then?
I think it was extremely difficult because at that time they couldn't even accuse you of imagining. And then you wonder how they were supposed to prove that you imagined. So you can imagine if you can be accused of imagining something.
And be detained.
Now what about saying it and detained for imagining? So it was extremely difficult. It was difficult to put yourself out there because in guaranteed either jail, exile, or even death. So it wasn't a mean achievement for him to have pushed the war that far. It was tough. But you know, the young people, when I read the social media, because I've been reading, is they imagine that if you believe in social progress and you hold those ideals dear, then it's a difficulty for you to share them with the victors. All of them basically are the ones who have defeated you.
Yeah.
That you wait, you bend your time. Because unfortunately for Raila, the only person he worked with and he was able to deliver to people of Kenya was Mwai Kibaki. It's the only government that was truly African, the way Raila would have wanted it to be. But all the other government here they worked with, they have been colonial, wearing a black skin, extractionists. So the young people argue that is ideals who are made compromised so that they can work with those people. But you see, Raila understood something that these young people don't understand. There is something called the tipping points. You can drive the country to a level where you may not be able to return it back.
Yeah.
So this is what was driving him into compromising with the people he should not have compromised with. Because when he looked at where the country may be headed, and then remembers through experience that returning that country back may be difficult, then you intervene to maintain that stability. So what they see as compromise is wise decision, informed by long experience, that let's not go there, let us stay there. So that is what they see as compromise.
Okay.
These young people.
So Javas, as you come in, I was doing a little bit of research, and it struck me that this gentleman, Raila Odinga, actually resigned and forced a by-election, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah. Yes.
And which is so rare. You know, once you get to that seat, you hold on to it for dear life. So talk to us about that sacrifice. And for a politician whose life has been dotted by unsuccessful stabs at the presidency, what was the most successful thing about Raila the politician? What stands out for you?
I would say that the sacrifice part did not come at the beginning. It came along the way and much later. What came right from the beginning, what you are referring to as resigning to go and contest for the Langata parliamentary seat, was an exposition or a demonstration of firmness in belief of ideology and what it stands for, and that if he disagreed with any person politically, then he was ready and willing to chart a new path for himself and those that believed in him. And talk of believing in himself, it reminds me of a poem by the Englishman Rudyard Kipling, who says that if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all others cannot trust you, but keep some room for the doubting as well. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, but most of all, if you can meet triumph and defeat and treat those imposters equally, you will be a man. Raila Odinga was a man, because all those issues described by the poet Rudyard Kipling are the things that have been demonstrated in the political life of Raila Odinga. You ask about successes. They are numerous, that even this show this evening cannot have us or give us room to engage in all of them. But I will enumerate a few.
Briefly here.
One, part of the successes is that Raila Odinga knew how to craft coalitions and political friendships. He would lose them, yes, but he knew how to create new political friendships. It is that rare ability that made Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka work with Raila Odinga for 3 election cycles by supporting Raila Odinga's political pursuit. He had to convince Kalonzo Musyoka, the politician who was also ambitious. It is that ability to work with other politicians who were initially your political nemesis, that after the contest, you don't begrudge your opponent forever. That's what made him work with the Honorable Mwai Kibaki after the post-election malaise of 2007. It made him work with Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, that they moved from being enemies to brothers and friends. It made him work even after the last election with Honorable William Ruto. It is a rare ability, gifting, and skill that few politicians have. The other thing is that while, factually, he started his politics before I was even born, but when you look at Honorable Raila Odinga with all his successes, he did not wear his successes like a crown. People celebrated him, he never rose to celebrate himself. But beyond that, the contribution to Kenya's democracy, look at the kind of political parties that he created or formed or established. But for me, the issue is not the establishment of the political parties. The issue is his determination to institutionalize political parties as organs or enablers or pillars of democracy is something that is very unique. Honorable Kioni is here, a celebrated leader and politician who worked with Honorable Raila Odinga in the Azimio coalition. And you'd see how they came up together with about 26 political parties in 2022. Working with 26 political parties, all those being leaders, ambitious, with the political energy in them, it's not an easy thing.
Yeah.
So in terms of Raila Odinga's successes, there are so many, and I think history will have a very kind place for him, beyond the kind of criticisms that some who are oblivious of Raila Odinga's journey are trying to entertain at this moment.
Okay. Kioni, with benefit of hindsight again, was it a political masterstroke for Raila Odinga to say Kibaki tosha? What was the weight of that particular statement? But equally, we have to talk about the fallout, because NAC painted a picture of unity, and unfortunately, it didn't carry on until the end of Kibaki's term. Talk to us about the impact of that Kibaki tosha and the fallout thereafter that perhaps led to the birth of ODM after the 2005 referendum.
Let me first of all say that for us in Jubilee, we have every reason to be a very sad lot. Was it not for the fight that Raila put up on behalf of Jubilee Party, we would not be having it today. When you were doing the Azimio demonstrations and we were talking about the cost of living, and Jubilee was being fought, it's him who's brought to the table and said, on top of all these things, we must fight for fidelity to multi-party democracy. And that gave me the courage and the confidence to continue fighting. And even when we were declared like the rightful people who should be in office, the first person I reached out to thank was Raila. And I think even that time he was either in Dubai or in India. And allow me to say also that, like my colleagues have said, him and Uhuru, after the handshake, it stopped being political friends. They became real friends. Not one single time did he ever call me and deliver a message from Uhuru and called him by name. I'm saying Uhuru, he always used to say, my brother has told me. And I can tell you, even as you sit here, President Uhuru has lost a real friend. Back to your question, that was Kibaki, and unfortunately we quickly lost that tosha within months. And I can talk more of it after the 2007. Because what we then gathered thereafter was, it was nothing, the fallout had nothing to do with Kibaki, but a lot to do with those of us who surround the reader. They are the ones who would get the long message, who put fitina and the rest. And when they got into the Grand Coalition government of 2007 thereafter, Kibaki was really harsh to many of us, whoever tried to say anything negative on Raila. I remember at one time we were saying, oh, Raila has said this against our youth, he's not respecting the PNU government. And then Kibaki said, he actually told us, kama wewe unafikiria wewe ni mzuri kuliko hao. You know that Kiswahili. Kama wewe unafikiria wewe ni mzuri sana kuliko hawa, sasa enda kuko uchaguliwe ukuje tufanye kazi na wao. Lakini kama hauwezi, basi utafanya kazi na hao, hata hawa ni wa Kenya. Hiyo ni shida yako. na hii fitina yako kwa kichwa kuanzia asubuhi saa 8 jioni haina maana. Hakikisha jioni umefanya kitu ya kusaidia Wakenya. Hapana fitina tu. So the 2007 the Grand Coalition government helped some of us to understand that Kibaki really understood that it is people who fitinaed the government of 2002. Because after the Grand Coalition, when he was made the Prime Minister, you could not do anything without Raila being there. And I wasn't quite in the second floor of Harambee House, but he had instructions that anytime he is in the office, if the Prime Minister walks in, is straight to his office without any clearance.
Okay.
Alikuwa anasema anything we are discussing here kwa hii ofisi ni ya serikali na yeye ni mmoja hii serikali. So that Kibaki Tosha again, it is a thing that happened between Serena and Uhuru Park. You look at the distance. We are told by those who are very near that when they left Serena, it was a different ball game. Yeah. But when he came to Uhuru Park and stood to speak, the rider understood the timing, he knew what to do, and he knew when to make the correct turn. And that is something any person, and especially the Gen Z, if you really want to get into politics, you will need to understand that the gentleman we are now mourning today. Okay. He is very different from many people. And allow me to say this, because what my colleague has said here is accurate. Yeah. After the demonstrations of Azimio and then Gen Z, twice he posed that question. He said, yes, it looks like we can be able to get these people into State House. But then a few of us looked at him and wondered, but that is exactly what we wanted to do. But he was already beyond getting there. It was a question, and then, do you have the army with you?
I remember asking him.
Are you going to run when the country collapses, then
he said
what
when
is
it collapses, I remember telling him, if it collapses, it will be who's a disadvantage.
Now, okay. And when the Gen Zs, the issue of the Gen Z is the one I remember clearly, because again, that time the Gen Zs had come on their own and we were feeling like, don't let these young people down. And again, put together as a team, I was in that room, and I remember him asking, yes, they are really, we appreciate what they are doing, can see the energy, and you see, he used to speak this way, and whenever you'd see his hands out here, it's like, there were hands welcoming you into his bigger him, not the smaller him. Okay. He said, yes, and somebody made the mistake of saying, the army will take over. He walked out of that sitting, never to come back. That I remember very clearly. So we can disagree with his joining this or that, but he was always ahead of where you are. After he has gotten into the roadblock, he was already seeing beyond the roadblock. And there was one time he put us together and said, I want to retire from this politics. And we said...
How long ago was it?
I don't want to say more. He said please don't.
Okay.
That's what we say. Please don't.
Yes.
Because we actually, it's true, we overworked him. Yeah. And my last thing before you allow my colleagues is what he has said. There's a time we were having a demonstration at Mukuru kwa Jenga. I think it may have been the last one or the second last. And he was out in Dubai. And so we were here, the team, with Stephen Karonzo. When we said we will be there, we were already lost on how are we going to manage this without Tinga. So he flew in the night or early morning, and we waited at Panari Hotel along this road. He joined us, came to Mukuru, and without each one of us could tell, we are overworking Baba. He was so tired. He had a problem with the back standing because he has been doing throughout the night. But we came out and it was very harsh to the William team. And that is when I also started thinking, we are really working. How I wish we could be able to master this, But that's not something you just take away. It is something that is you must work on as a politician over time.
Agwanda, I'll come back to you, and there's a reason for that. Just, Prof, briefly, because we've heard of this, the cult of personality, that Raila Odinga commanded extraordinary, almost religious devotion from his supporters. So from where you sit, how much of Odinga's 4-decade endurance can be attributed to political ideology and clear policy agenda, and how much of it can be put down to his charismatic personality and that cult of Baba?
I think most of it can be attributed to ideology, to his belief, because he was able to communicate. You see, the way people come to you as a leader is when you become the voice through which their frustrations find expression. So he was able to express the frustrations of people through his ideological. You see, the foundation of Raila Odinga, ODM, or his party, is what is called the social democracy. In other words, the policies are pro-people, almost 100% pro-people. So he was able to communicate that. And then also given his charisma, then people are able to believe that they can actually deliver that. And that is what glued the people to him.
Okay. Agwanda, I saved this question for you because you happen to come from the larger Nyanza region, and at the end of the day, unfortunately, despite him not having been laid to rest, power abhors vacuum. So he's definitely left a void that wouldn't be easy to fill. What do you foresee in the near future in terms of the succession matrix that will play out? Because power abhors vacuum, as I mentioned.
Well, I wanted to just say something a little bit on the question you had asked, Professor. And I think Professor just wanted to be conservative for the night. He didn't want to speak his mind out. But you know, there's a clip that has been played on TV. And there's a gentleman in Kibera that said, if you go against Baba, when you come here, you must kneel down and say, Baba, Baba na Rom Takatifu, Baba, you know, those kind of things. Before we even say, I don't think that is how he said it, but it's something to that, Baba Mungu, Baba Rom Takatifu, Baba Mwana. Before we even forgive you to start thinking about, coming to a community. Raila was feared and was equally respected. And to some people, he was not a human being. To some people, Agwambo is something that is strange, and it's in a Luo terminology. There are people who did believe that he was a human being. And so there was a fear in him, but there was also the cultism that we're talking about. And some people believe that if you talk against Baba, for whatever reason, even if he's not there, something is going to befall you that is not very good in your household. You understand that?
Yes, yes.
That ties into the question that you've just asked me in terms of the leadership vacuum in Luo land. The most fearful person today in Luo Nyanza is a man that is elected, whether an MCA, whether an MP, whether senator, whether governor, or any other position that is elected, because that was a home turf for Baba. And he made sure that he had as many representatives in that place than any other place in this country. Because Baba believed that if I had to go out there and bargain, I first have to have something in my basket. For me to go to Central, I must tell them that I've already conquered the voting bloc in Luoland, and also a big chunk in Luoland, and I'm also in Mombasa, and I'm also a little bit in Eastern, you know. So he knew that democracy is not democracy without a following. And not just a following, but a substantial elected leaders that you can go to begin with. And he also knew about the numbers. He knew that even if I don't become the president, but I will sit with those very people on the table. And let me tell you, he was not wrong on that. Because in all this government that Raila has run for president, the numbers have been very, very close. Very, very close to a place where a president sits in and says, but you can't ignore this guy. Okay. He is already having almost a half, almost the same number of votes as the one you got. So he's not a guy you're going to ignore. And remember, his supporters, if he told them go right, they went right. I can tell you, some of his good students are the people sitting with me here, like you. Oh, yes. Very, very stuck to what he was saying. And if he said we're going on the street, they will go on the street. And they didn't care. I think Raila needs to be given a trophy for a man who have consumed more tear gas in this country than anybody else. And that's a fact, because he led from the front. Okay. But then, you're talking about the leadership vacuum. I want to tell you something which is strange. When Jaramogi Oginga Odinga died, he did not leave the party to Raila Odinga. In fact, Raila Odinga was the director of election in that party. The party was left to the late Kijana Mamalwa. And then the second person who was in that party was James Orengo. Those were the people that were left with the party. Okay. But then Raila realized there was a vacuum here, so he grabbed it. I believe in Raila's philosophy in one aspect, though it is very difficult to understand, because for a long time, even when he was saying that, how about if I quit politics, everybody was asking, but if you quit, who are you submitting this to? Who are you giving us to lead us to the crossing line? And that's something he never did, and perhaps it is because of his orientation earlier on, where nobody gave him anything, and so he felt, well, let the leader emerge. Okay. The reason why Raila was a hero in Luoland was one. Luos like people who can fight at the front line. Yeah. And if you cannot fight and bring something home, you will not be a Luo leader. That's why we have a problem today, because then we don't know which Luo is going to fight for us.
Just a small correction.
Yeah, briefly.
It's not power which has a vacuum. It is nature. Which has a vacuum.
Okay, thanks for that correction, Prof. So, Javas, as you come in, there's this concept of political offense. And at the end of the day, we saw the nature in which ODM was democratic. Of course, they would contest for some of these positions, but some were, all you needed was the blessing of Baba and you were good to go. So talk to us about the ramifications of Raila Odinga's exit from the political scene and this concept of political offense, and equally, which way ODM?
Just Raila Odinga was a political typhoon. And he would sweep anything on his path, politically. But beyond that, Raila Odinga, being that exceptional politician, he was the only man whose words had the power of statute. He would declare a particular day a holiday, and actually it would be. Not gazetted, but those words had statutory power, that actually people would not go to work. You would go, yes, but you would not work if you wanted. Or maybe you would not even get there. Yeah. That is the kind of ferocity that his words had. But as we look at it, I recall the words of Spencer, the brother to Princess Diana. While mourning Princess Diana in the 90s, he referred to Princess Diana as a candle in the wind. I look at Raila Odinga as a candle in the stormy sea, because the circumstances now cannot have the candle on. It's gone off. But by going off, it has not gone off alone. It has gone off with many other lights. The question you are asking, that are there going to be political orphans? In fact, serious orphans by way of his death. The death of Honorable Raila Odinga is leading expectedly to the death of many other political careers. There are people who've been pushing Raila Odinga over the years to run for president, not because they trusted that he will win the presidency, but to hang on his political coattails. And some could not even spend a dime after his endorsement, because the moment he has endorsed you or you have the ODM ticket in the strongholds, it was as good as waiting for the swearing in Parliament.
True.
Now, those individuals are now in a stormy sea because they needed not to share with the people their manifesto, their ideologies. You remember at some point when we were fighting for the new constitution, some people would say that Raila Odinga has read this document and we need not read it.
Yeah.
That demonstrates the kind of trust the people, the ordinary people, had in Raila Odinga. But it pointed to the fact that Raila Odinga was a political signage. If you would point a particular direction, the people would easily follow.
Okay.
He picked it perhaps from his father, who, if he wanted to campaign for somebody, he would just come to a meeting and say, please greet for me so-and-so. And the people would know that the message of Jaramogi is home. Vote for so-and-so. But the issue of the orphanage or the orphans that come out here in the circumstances of Raila's death. One, remember, for example, that the former deputy party leaders are now state officers, Honorable Joho and Honorable Oparanya. Ask you this question. Can the home guards within ODM agree for Joho to be a party leader or Oparanya to be a party leader? The answer is not in the affirmative. Now, is there going to be jostling for the mantle of the party leadership of ODM? Of course, there will be. Is ODM going to survive? Yes, it will.
It will.
But the power will win.
Okay.
Some people within ODM were in ODM not because of any other thing, but because of Raila Odinga.
Okay.
Now that Raila is not there, some of them are going to leave the party. But beyond that, there are individuals that the people will not vote for now in the next election because some of them were being coerced by their trust and love in Raila Odinga, that Raila Odinga desired the company of certain individuals into political office. Those individuals now will have to fight for their own political survival. I can assure you that the death of Raila Odinga spells doom and the death of many political careers.
And you're not mentioning names.
I'm not mentioning names, but factually...
But we will at the right time.
Raila Odinga, Honorable Raila Odinga has not gone into this good night silently.
Okay.
He has stormed into it.
I think the people should be worried is not necessarily Oparanya or Onjo. It's the people in Nairobi. Anyone who is holding an ODM ticket in Nairobi was elected courtesy of Raila Odinga because of the coalition he was able to build. That coalition now is basically dead. Now Mombasa have an areas also, and in Nakuru. Those are the people who are likely to be really worried.
You've mentioned about Nairobi, and my mind went back to when Raila Odinga and William Ruto called the MCAs and told them, hey, Governor Sakaja perhaps needs to finish his term. Things might change, but the more things change, the more they remain the same. Kioni, what will the future of ODM look like? And how will Nyanza go in terms of 2027 from your political ball?
Again, allow me to say that 2022 was a time I really wanted to see the presidency of Raila Odinga. And I don't think there was another person who wanted it more than Uhuru. And he kept telling us, this man anapenda Kenya. Huyu anapenda Kenya. Trust him with the country. None of you will suffer. And we supported him as a Jubilee party. And I cherish every moment I spent campaigning for him. I may have lost my seat, but that's a small sacrifice given what he sacrificed for this country. I really pray and will do everything possible within my ability to ensure that ODM remains intact and plays its rightful role in this country. For the last 20 years, more, because Raila was in more than just ODM, this country has been shaped by the politics of ODM led by Baba. And you cannot wish it away. It will be a big loss for this country if ODM as a party does not hold strong.
Will the young Turks take over, or will the old guard still maintain the status quo?
Naturally, you respect the young Turks to have a stronger say, but it doesn't mean that they should wish away the old Turks. A mixture of the two will help us move into that natural transition that is coming. And again, the young people have energy, they have everything, they have the zeal, they have but it is always important to take counsel. And to also don't just wish away everybody away, and think that you can just do it alone. It's good to have everybody on board. This intergenerational management of affairs helps more. But certainly you expect quite a bit of movement within the Young Turks. They were even making those moves when Baba was still there.
Yeah.
My colleagues would understand it better, but the last statement by Baba is one that might define ODM when he said ODM will field a candidate 2027. That statement might guide a lot of in terms of what happens within the party.
Okay.
But I sat at Naivasha when we had PNU and ODM. The constitution that we are having today in this country is a negotiated document between those two fronts. ODM has a place in this country. And for members of ODM, the leaders of ODM, those elected, and even the membership of the party, we play and hope that the pull and push that will naturally come will end up with a stronger unit that can continue contributing to the welfare of this country.
Okay. Agwanda, your take, Young Turks versus the old guards. How will Nyanza go come 2027? Because the colleagues of Kioni and the likes would mention that, Raila Odinga is the lifeline of one President William Ruto. Now that he's not there.
Jesse, this is a little bit controversial, but it's actually what is happening in ODM. The ODM can and will have a lifeline. But if they change the way they've been operating, I say this with great authority. Look at the by-elections that are taking place. If you look at Kasipul and look at the numbers of the candidates that wanted to run for ODM ticket, you'll be surprised. When we tried to run for ODM ticket in 2013, we were 22. And in 2022, I think there were almost 12 or 13 people that came into the race. And this happened across the country. But remember that just in Luo land, there were almost about 3 people that submitted the money to ODM to run for Kasipul parliamentary nomination. That tells you something. We have Malaba that has no single candidate from ODM, and it is on record. We also have in Kakamega, there's an MCA that returned a certificate of ODM back to ODM. And then you ask yourself, and that is when Raila Odinga was still alive. The question then you want to ask yourself, it's what's gonna happen when Raila is not there and Raila is not running for president, and there is nobody that is within the team that has the ferocity, the support, the interest of running for president. Will then ODM still hold? Yes, they can hold. But then the question then you're driving home is whether the young people versus the old people are there. I can tell you that unfortunately we have some young people that have really old ideologies in ODM that will make it even go under faster. And this is what has happened giving a perfect example is what has happened in Kasipul as well, where the people are saying, this is the person we want, but then you decide to give it to the school kids to vote for that very person that you really want. The nomination is what has been killing or puncturing ODM bit by bit to a point where people are having no faith in this by-election and saying, look, the nomination is just a superficial thing that they're doing, but they already identify an individual. And that's what lost a lot of votes from Luo land in 2022 that did not vote. Now, if that ideology is continuing in some of these old tasks, like the chair of ODM really running and saying this person has to be here, we have to give it to this person, and saying it in public, and yet you know that there are also other aspirants, instead of saying, how about if you have a competitive, transparent, process where the winner will be supported, and if you lose, you can support somebody else. If we do not change that ideology, I see ODM puncturing every single day. It's not about the young or the old, but if it's the ideology is being, the bad ideologies is being still being held by the young people because they want power and they want control of the party. They want to control the bigger membership of parliamentary PG group that is coming from ODM. That will not be realized, and I'm sorry that might cause doom for ODM.
Your take?
I think there's something bigger in ODM.
Yeah.
ODM is a socio-democratic party. It's a party whose policies are pro-people by definition. Then it's in bed with a conservative party, UNDA. When the president Ruto was seeking votes, he was seeking vote as a social-democrat. But then when he formed the government, he became conservative. So the policies are not necessarily for people. So there's a confusion within ODM right now, and there's a lot of searching, because the ODM policies are not fitting with the Kenya Kwanza policy. Now that is what they have to try. If they are going to survive as a team, because I mean what you're having now is a coalition of ODM and UDA. It's not really a simeo as such. Yeah. So the question is for them now to find a balance. Those who will not be able to find that imbalance, if the partnership is going to continue, they will leave. That is where the problem for ODM is going to start. Because for so many, you see, ODM is the oldest political party in the country. You need to understand that. Therefore, ODM is the oldest, yes. It has survived longer, where Kanu is there, but ODM as an active party has survived longer. Yeah. So the conflict is going to come from that. But if they run a presidential candidate, then they will stay together. There will be no conflict. Because they will go back to being social-democrats and they will leave the conservative alone. So, but if they continue with the conservatives, then some will have to leave.
Jarvis, where does Raila Odinga's death leave William Ruto, the politician, bearing in mind the political capital that was associated with this UDA-ODM pact? And equally, there's a gentleman on the sidelines whose political capital has just doubled, Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, a man who supported Raila Odinga three times and 3 presidential stubs. In terms of inheriting, due to the honor and the support he gave, how should he inherit this particular voting bloc in order to get the same support he gave? Yeah.
Politically, Jesse, Raila has died intestate, without a will, politically.
Politically, yeah.
Because he did not have an heir apparent within ODM on whom to bestow the honors of managing the estate. Kalonzo Musyoka has worked with the Honorable Raila Odinga and supported Raila Odinga in 3 election cycles. So technically, politically, he's a foster child. But if at all there is a jostling for direction, leadership, etc. within ODM, it's possible that some people may be sympathetic to Kalonzo Musyoka because of having worked with Raila Odinga for long. And that will extend political support to Kalonzo Musyoka. However, that is not guaranteed. Remember that prior to his demise, Raila Odinga had gotten into a pact with President William Ruto. Now you ask, where does that leave President William Ruto? There are 2 things. One, today the president has caused to be affixed the seal of the president on a presidential proclamation. When you look at that proclamation, Honorable Raila Odinga has been given weighty recognition, applaud, and praise by the president, the honors that are due to Raila Odinga because of the sacrifices that he has made over time. But then there is the issue of Raila Odinga saying publicly that he is working with President William Ruto for the good of the country. Honorable Kioni has said that ODM and Raila Odinga indicated clearly, of course on record, I agree, that ODM will field a candidate. But we also know that Honorable Raila Odinga would always make critical decisions at the 11th hour. But having worked with President William Ruto, remember, as the one gentleman in Kisumu today said, Raila Odinga took us into government and he has left us there. It is consequential. Not everyone may remain there, but there are those who will remain there because Raila Odinga took them to President William Ruto and he will remain there. But what is the weight of that partnership between Raila Odinga and President William Ruto? What is the weight of the presidential proclamation? Beyond the significant honors to a civilian now and a statesman that Raila Odinga has been given, it shows President William Ruto, one, respects and respected Raila Odinga, really celebrated and celebrates Raila Odinga's contributions in our democracy, but third, that Raila Odinga was actually still a true friend beyond being a true statesman. When you look at all these, the leaders within ODM have got choices to make. Recall that ODM Secretary General Sifuna has said that, for example, he does not recognize the MOU. Now, that is one point of divergence.
Okay.
We have got Honorable Babu Wino, for example, points of divergence. But we have got other leaders. We have got other critical leaders, those who are experts in government. We have got the chairperson of ODM, together with other leaders, who are at peace with the direction Raila Odinga had given, working with President William Ruto. All these things cannot be seen through one clear lens. But as a matter of fact, it is not going to leave President William Ruto bereft of the support of Luo Nyanza.
I think there's a dimension people are not seeing here. The candidacy of Freddie Matiang'i. You see, the regional blocks, they have always been regional blocks. You have Kisis who have supported Raila almost permanently. Now Raila is not there and they have a candidate. Okay? So there is going to be a contest. In fact, to me, I think the Luo vote is now wide open, in my opinion. Okay. It's completely, because...
It's like Mount Kenya in 2022.
Yeah, it's Mount Kenya in 2022, because the loyalties of the Kisis, which they have demonstrated over the years, to Raila Odinga and Luo, that most Luos would want to return in that favor. And therefore, what I think is that that dimension will also play very heavily. And I think it may very well be much easier for the Luo Nyanza to throw their lot behind Matiang'i.
Interesting. I'm sure Kioni has something to say about that as we get the final comments, of course. Our time is up, unfortunately. We'll give each one of you a round.
Rest in peace, Baba Raila Amolo Odinga. Yes, we recognize what the sacrifices he made. The politics, the way they will evolve, we will deal with them. For now, tunasema pole kwa familia.
Wacha pumzike. Okay. Agwanda, we didn't touch on devolution. He was the father of devolution, Majimboism, federalism. Perhaps your final comments, if you could encompass something on that.
Raila, Kenya will miss you.
Yeah.
Raila, the government will miss you. The people will miss you. Raila is a president that never became the president of this nation. And Raila, you played your part very, very well. Unfortunately, Kenya took quite a bit of you than your family. And to that we say pole to your family that never enjoyed you that much. You are always on the go. If not in detention, you're on the road. If not on the road, you're demonstrating. If not demonstrating, you're visiting and helping members of parliament and senators and governors. You had no rest. And even when you had it all, as a prime minister, and had some money in your pocket, you still did not rest to enjoy that money. And that is sad. I believe that what has the beginning must have an end, but it is a lesson to us as a nation that you don't have to work until you die on it, because at the end of the day, it is your family that will really miss you. But to Mama Ida, your children, the nephews that are there, some of them are my friend, Elijah Buru, Jaoko Buru, Dick, and a number of them want to say pole to the Raila Amolo Odinga family and the Ogengo Odinga family at large.
Okay. Prof.
Yeah, I think, I want to associate with what Cyril is saying that Raila is probably the best president Kenya never had. And therefore, it's a huge loss for the country. And so my condolences to the family of Raila Odinga and to Kenya for losing one of the most illustrious sons this country has produced.
Javas.
Just I would say that nothing can dim the glorious light of Raila Odinga for the legacy that he has left for us. And he was a great man in his time, he remains a great man in ours, and he'll be a great man in future times. And even in times such as this, when pain cannot forget and grief falls drop by drop upon our hearts, we remain encouraged that the grace of God sustains us now into future times.
Well, he might be gone. Yeah.
There are many who have accused him of taking the turns for financial gain. Far from it. The retro we know, far from it. He's a president we never got to experience.
Okay, gentlemen, he may be gone, but his legacy lives on. It goes without saying. We definitely appreciate your time. It has been a busy day, and you took time off your busy schedules to give us some input in terms of the life and times of Raila Amolo Odinga. We definitely appreciate your input. Jeremiah Kioni, the Secretary General of the Jubilee Party. Equally appreciate Michael Agwanda, who's a seasoned political analyst. Professor Gitile Naituli, he needs no introduction, and Javas Bigambo, a seasoned analyst as well. Asanteni sana, gentlemen. It'll be a busy next few days until he's laid to rest on Sunday. Trust KTN to keep you updated. Tomorrow we expect the body of the late former Prime Minister to arrive in the country at around 8:30 a.m., according to the reports who were given by the Deputy President. Thereafter, he'll head to Lee Funeral Home briefly, and thereafter to Parliament buildings, where he'll lie in state. Nairobians and Kenyans around will be able to see him and pay their last respects. Thereafter, we have a state funeral at Nyayo Stadium on Friday. His body will rest at his home in Karen, then will be transported to Kisumu on Saturday, where there will be public viewing of his body at Moi Stadium, I think in Kisumu. Thereafter, he'll be transported by road to Bondo, and we expect the final rites on Sunday. We'll keep you updated. Our team is already on the ground. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Jesse Rogers. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your viewing.